Today marks Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day to look back on the 6 million Jews who died at the hands of the Nazis in World War II. After the war, 3 survivors fled Germany and in a twist of fate decided to make Columbia their home. Dr. Lily Filler had an amazing career as an OBGYN, becoming Prisma Health's first female chief of staff, and none of that would have been possible if her parents had not survived the Holocaust. Here's their story.
The term final solution was brought forth. We're going to murder all the Jews in Europe.
Dr. Lily Filler's mom, Jadzia, was just 14 years old when she and her family went into hiding in a barn in Poland trying to escape the Nazis. But one night, the family was discovered. Her grandmother hid Jadzia, her oldest daughter, in a trunk and gave her an order. Jadzia, survive.
When the Nazis asked, how many of you are there? They said there's 6 instead of 7. So her parents and her 4 younger siblings went down, and it was heart-wrenching for my mom to be separated. She said, I want to go with you, plead to her mother, wanted to stay with them, and her mother said, you have to survive.
That was the last time Jadzia ever saw her mother. But hours later, Jadzia left the safety of the barn and was captured by the Nazis.
She's a 14-year-old kid. Where's she going to run? So she runs and she gets into one of the lines. And that puts her on the cattle car, one of the cattle cars that takes her to Auschwitz.
Meanwhile, her father, Ben Stern, was also living in Poland when his family was first deported to a Jewish ghetto. These so-called ghettos were places where Jews were sent against their will and isolated. Next, he was sent to Auschwitz. Men and women were separated in these camps, but Ben was in the same dorm with Jadzia's older brother, also named Ben.
6 inmates that they slept in the same bunk. So it happened that my uncle, whose also his name is Ben, Scars, was a bunkmate of my father.
For almost 2 years, they lived in hell, working long hours of physical labor and facing beatings and starvation at the hands of the Nazis. But Jadzia and Ben Stern did what Jadzia's mom had prayed for. They survived. In April of 1945, Auschwitz and Dachau were liberated. Dr. Filler's father, though, almost starved to death while in the camp.
So when Dad was liberated on April 30th, 1945, he was emaciated. He weighed 87 pounds. But Dad said he couldn't get out of his head where he was. And he was not going to stay there no matter how kind anybody was. He was getting out. And my uncle said, I'm going with you. So they left. They literally walked out.
But in a time with no cell phones and no internet, there was no easy way to find out if your family members had survived the death camps. So Ben, and Jadzia went to their hometowns to wait for others to return.
Went to look for their families back in Poland. And you can only imagine, I mean, kids don't know that you can't go and just Google somebody or see where they, everything had been destroyed. Nobody had papers. They had to jump trains to get from Munich, Germany into Poland.
Back in Poland, Ben found his sister Jadzia had survived. Meanwhile, his bunkmate, Ben Stern, was also hopeful. Here is the only remaining picture of the Stern family. Little Ben is on his father's lap. Every single other person in this picture, except for Ben and one of his sisters, died in the concentration camps. Well, that is just the first part of their incredible story. Coming up in the second half hour of Friends at 5 today, more on Jadzia and Ben, how they survived and how they ended up right here in Columbia, South Carolina. The next half coming up. All right, on this Holocaust Remembrance Day, we're telling the amazing story of survival. I've now introduced you to Ben, and Jadzia. Their daughter, Dr. Lily Filler, is sharing their story of how the family survived the Holocaust and then ended up here starting a new life in South Carolina. Ben stayed in touch with his bunkmate, and he introduced him to his surviving sister, Jadzia. The couple quickly fell in love and got married. As for how the family ended up here in South Carolina, it was a childhood errand that changed this family's fate.
And since Dad was the youngest of four, I guess his assignment was to go to the post office, pick up the mail, bring it back, and then if the family wrote a letter, bring it back to the post office. She would knock like this to indicate, you tell that postmaster that this needs to go to Uncle Gabe Stern in Lexington, South Carolina.
After the war, Ben, and Jadzia knew they needed to come to America. So they took a chance and they wrote a letter to Gabe Stern in Lexington, South Carolina. On the back of the envelope, Ben wrote, "I am a Holocaust survivor. Please get this to my uncle." Amazingly, the post office found Uncle Gabe Stern. And with that, the trio, with their new baby Lily, who had just been born in Germany after the war, came to America to begin their new life. Dr. Filler says she saw the Auschwitz tattoos on her parents' arms, but didn't want to ask them how they survived the death camps.
We never spoke about it. It was awful, horrible. My mom had nightmares every night of her life until she passed away. It was awful. I can't even imagine it.
Dr. Filler had an amazingly successful career. She and her husband opened the first freestanding physical therapy clinic in Columbia in the 70s. Then she decided to go back to medical school after having her babies and become an OB/GYN. She was named the chair of the OB department at what's now Prisma Hospital. But even after treating a lifetime of patients, her mission is simple: to educate the public about the 6 million Jews who died in the Holocaust and tell their stories, as she says our time with this generation is fleeting.
They experienced what happened, and there's nothing more compelling than hearing somebody tell you their story. And unfortunately, the survivors, the eyewitnesses, the liberators are dying.
And more than anything, she wants others to learn from the past, as her own grandparents didn't even believe they were in any danger.
My grandparents, I know, felt, as many in Europe during that time, this too shall pass. This is just rhetoric. Hitler's just talking. He's not going to do. If we don't pay attention to the past, we might ignore what's going to happen in the future until it's too late.
Such an honor to get a chance to tell their stories and hear something amazing you might never have thought about. The only reason why those pictures that you saw in the story exist is because they were sent to Uncle Gabe Stern, who lived here in South Carolina, because most Holocaust survivors returned home to find their homes destroyed and no personal artifacts like pictures left behind. Dr. Filler's parents both died in the early 2000s, and to honor them and other survivors, Dr. Filler is one of the people who helped create and get the funding for the South Carolina Holocaust Memorial. You can visit that site anytime. It's at 700 Hampton Street.